Welcome to Art by Rick. I'm Rick. Today I'm going to do another simple painting. This is going to be one that's really easy for anyone to do. I think the hardest part of doing this particular painting is picking the colors that you want to use. Colors will give you all different types of effects. Colors will give you a mood. Colors will kind of speak to you. A lot of times, as I've said many times before, I'll walk around my home or my yard or even my neighborhood and I'll be looking at different things to see what different types of color matches seem to make sense. So I have this blank spot in my bathroom of all places, and I'm an artist. I like looking at things. Blank walls drive me crazy. I need to see something on the wall. I need something to attract my eye. So I've been looking at this space for a while. And it's not a big space. It's actually behind the bathroom door when you walk into the bathroom. And I've had a number of different things hanging there, but nothing seemed to actually work. Now my bathroom is, it dates back, it's a 1950s house, but it's not a 1950s bathroom. The bathroom has been updated over the years. And it has a light gray kind of tile in it with a gray tile floor, some black trim, bullnose tile that kind of goes around and makes kind of on the half wall, capping the tiles that are on the wall. The walls are kind of a powder gray. The tub is a light gray. The vanity is white with a white top. And then, of course, I have a mirror and a lighting system for the bathroom. So there's not a lot of color in the bathroom, but it is an interesting mix of whites, grays, and black. So I thought, well, maybe I can do a simple 16 by 20 canvas, taking those colors and doing some brush strokes on them to just kind of give something interesting to look at on that wall. Now, I've done things like this before. I actually have a painting here that I want to show you. This is one that I did a while back. This is just simply a 16 by 20 canvas. This particular canvas on this particular painting is another one of the kits that I bought. It's a simple stretch of canvas. It's over a wood frame. I took this canvas and I sealed it with the paint sealant that I used, the acrylic Grosso. Let it sit, let it dry, and then I picked out 4 different colors to kind of use on the canvas to make some interesting strokes, blending those colors together. And this one, as you can see, is blacks and grays and some blues. And I liked the way very much that this came out. So I was looking at this painting and I thought to myself, I'd like to do something like this for the bathroom, but do it in the colors of the bathroom so it complements that particular room. So I decided this is what I'm going to do. Now, in order to do this kind of painting, I had to pick out, my colors and what I'm going to use. So in this particular case, I got out my trusty paper plates. I've said on the show many times that I like to use paper plates. This allows me to apply paints, mix paints, do whatever I want to do. Gives me enough of a surface to put paints on and smear a brush in if I need to get a lot of paint, or just tap a brush if I just need to get a little bit of paint. But of course, the easy thing about the paper plates is once I'm done, I can just throw it away. There's very easy cleanup. I don't have a paint palette that I have to constantly clean, or a paint egg tray that I have paints in that I've got to wash and clean. I just use the paper plates. Could be considered wasteful. I just find it the easiest thing to do. And I can use the paper plate and do 4 or 5 colors on it, depending on how much paint I want to use, or if I'm going to do a splatter painting, or I'm going to do a painting that requires a lot of mixing of paints, I can use the wide surface of a paper plate to mix those particular paints. So that's why I use the paper plate. I also had to select the brushes that I'm going to use to do this particular project. I have my bucket of brushes. This has just regular paint brushes in it. The kind of paint brushes you'd use for just about anything. They're different widths. Some of them are a little bit fancier than others. This one's an angle brush. Some of them are older brushes that I've used many times. I like it when the brushes get kind of used and they get, I call it hairy. I don't know if that's the proper word to use for it, but basically the bristles on the brush start to separate a little bit from being cleaned so many times. And I found that it kind of gives a real nice stroke look on the canvas when it's not a solid paint. You get those interesting lines that the brush makes. You can also use the brush by taking it and turning it and doing long strokes or wide strokes or things along that line, depending on how you're going to apply the paint. Sometimes using these bigger brushes is not going to give me the effect that I'm looking for. So I have a series of smaller brushes, and these are brushes you can pick up just about anywhere. I happen to buy a kit. Gives me some angle brushes here. I have a round tip brush, a fan brush, some smaller brushes which allow me to do some detail work should I decide to do detail work. Just some general size brushes here. And I've also used different things to make strokes and lines that are not paint brushes. I've used sponges before. I've used, different paper towel rolls, things along those lines to get different effects that I want to do. And in a future show, I'm going to do a texture type painting which shows some of those things that I'm going to use. But for this show, as I said, I'm going to be doing real simple, just a bunch of brush strokes on canvas of colors that will match the room that I plan to hang it in. So let's go over to the preparation table where I'll begin to show you how I'm going to lay down these colors on the canvas. Okay, so I'm here at my preparation table and I've laid a 16 by 20 inch canvas. Again, like I showed in the beginning, this is a stretched canvas over just a basic wood frame. I've sealed this canvas with the acrylic grosso just to make sure my paints don't bleed through. And I used a brush when I sealed this so that I have a little bit of paint stroke in it. I mean, it's not perfectly flat, but as it dries, it gets flatter. But I always like that little bit of brush stroke in the canvas to give it a little bit of creative look as far as that's concerned. I've taken my paper plate and I've added two base colors to the paper plate. Basically, I have my gray and I have my black, and I've chosen a newer brush because I want a finer solid color, because what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to paint the perimeter of this particular canvas. So just starting up here in the corner, what I'm doing is I'm just laying down some paint, and you'll notice that the way that I'm doing this is I'm not allowing the brush to be completely solid as far as the paint is concerned. When it first goes on the canvas, when you first touch it down, you're going to get a little bit of a solid stroke, and that's fine, but I want to see the paint lines in this particular painting. So I'm going to do a little bit more gray here and there on this particular painting. I'll do just a couple of strokes down here on the end, and I'll bring some in on the side a little bit, and maybe another one up here towards the top. So again, I'm just using the brush to get some different looks on the canvas itself to get my grays in here, and I'm trying to blend it in such a way where you don't have sharp edges that are on the canvas. So as you can see already, I've got the gray on the white, and it's starting to take some kind of a form. Now what I want to do with this is I want to rinse my brush. So I'm going to get a little bit of water right here, and I'm going to rinse my brush out. Okay, so the brush gets rinsed off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the black. I have some black paint on here. Black is a base color, so you need to be pretty careful with how you're going to do this. I'm going to use the same brush, And I'm going to give me some black lines on the side of the canvas, just to kind of give it a little bit of a look on the side. And this had a little bit of water in it, so you can see the water is kind of parting, but that's okay. It gives it a little bit of an interesting look. I'm letting the paint kind of just drip on the canvas to kind of make some interesting blotches here. Again, like I said, you could turn the brush in different directions. In this particular case, I've turned the brush sideways so that I can get some different looks on it. And I'm just going to kind of just helter-skelter a few little strokes here and there. That's all. Just kind of a little black strokes here, some little side strokes. Real simple. Again, just kind of adding some depth and technique to it. This had a little bit of water on it, so I'm just going to add a little bit more paint on the side there. And if you get any, splatter from the paintbrush as you're painting, you drip some paint or something like on it, that's fine, because that's just going to give this painting a little bit more character, a little bit more look. Now, I don't want to do purely black and white on this particular painting. I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit, so I'm going to take a clear plate, and I'm going to use a neutral color. This is kind of a tan-like color. It's a classic caramel, as they call it. That's the name of this color. But I'm going to put some of this on the plate. Okay, a little bit of an interruption there. The paint that I was going to use, as I introduced, was this classic caramel color. But unfortunately, this particular paint's almost gone, so I switched at the last minute to a little bit lighter of a color. This is a light mocha. I'm going to switch brushes. I'm still using the same size brush, but again, just for cleanliness purposes, I'm going to use a little bit of a lighter brush on here. I'm going to just kind of swish my paint around a little bit, and I'm going to add some of this lighter color to the painting itself to again just give some depth to it, some different types of looks. So again, I'm just adding this different color to the canvas and allow it to just kind of stroke through, kind of just giving a little bit of an extra look here. And again, just giving it a little bit of a look. Now, if you do touch some of the other spots of the paint that are wet, that's fine. They can just blend together just to give you that overall look. Now, this is just kind of very basic, this particular painting here. It's just, as I said, it's just kind of trying to pick up the colors in my bathroom. So now what I need to do is I kind of need to allow this to set up just for a few minutes, because what I'm going to do is, even though the canvas is white, I'm going to add some white to it, and I don't want the white to drag through the colors just as yet. So I'm going to let this set up for just a few minutes. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes or so. There's a few spots of the black are still a little bit wet, but that's okay. I'm going to continue on with this particular painting. The paint has set up. I've got the colors that I want, but I want to put some white in this to kind of accent the canvas that's behind it a little bit. While I was off camera and this was setting up, I sealed the edges of the canvas. When I seal the edges of the canvas, usually I'll just pick a color that I'm using in the painting. This one's pretty simple. I mean, I used the gray color that I stroked over here to seal the bottom, the side, and the top, and then I switched over to the black and just kind of sealed this side for the black. Again, the reason why I seal the edges is to not only make it look like a completed painting, but I'm going to hang this on the wall. So hanging it on the wall, I want to be able to look at it from each angle and see a finished look, because I'm not going to put this within a frame. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to put a frame on it at some time in the future. I could do that if I choose to do that, but for now I'm going to leave it just as raw canvas with a little bit of paint on it, and I've just painted the edges so that the edges again give it a nice finished look. So now I want to add a little bit of a different color. So as I said before, you can take paper plates and put your paints on this. In this case, you can see I did the black and white, and I'm pretty much finished with what I want to do with my black and white paint. So I'm just going to take this and put it in my disposal bucket. I did some tan paint, excuse my reach. I did some tan paint on a brush, and again I just added some strokes in here just to give it a little bit of a contrast. So I've added the tan color. Again, I'm finished with this particular brush, so I'm going to take this plate and pretty much get rid of this plate. So again, this plate can go. Now what I want to do is I want to add some white to this particular painting, just to kind of lighten it a little bit and give it some interesting strokes. And then I'll do some other little designs on it to kind of give it a focus, or give it something that you can draw your eye to when you're taking a look at it. So let's add some white to this painting. Okay, I got some basic white paint. This is just a clear, bright white paint that I picked up at a local hobby store. So just some plain white paint that's in here. Again, I got another plate, and I put some white paint on the plate. In this particular case, I'm going to use a smaller brush. This is just a small square brush that I'm using to add some white paint. And I want to just add just a little bit, not too much, only because this particular painting has on a white canvas, so I don't really need to add a lot. But I want to kind of lighten this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, and I'm basically going to turn it sideways so that I can make some lines and some strokes. And I'm just going to make some lines on here. Just some simple lines. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too fancy, just some simple white lines. Just like that. That's all. Just some white lines. There we go. Just some white lines. Just to kind of lighten it a little bit and give me a little bit of a different look here. I'll even add a little bit of white into the black here. Just again, just to kind of have some white lines in there and a little bit into the gray. There you go. Real simple. Nothing too spectacular or wild. You know, just adding some white into the paint. So again, just a very, very simple painting. Not a lot of contrast to it, or not a lot of busyness to it. Just some basic colors to pick up the colors that are in my bathroom. And again, I've sealed the edges of the canvas in order to give it a finished look when you're looking at it. So that's basically it. Just super, super simple. Only took me a few minutes to do. I've just added some basic colors to the canvas using the gray for my gray tile in the bathroom, the black for the black tile that's in the bathroom, neutralizing it a little bit with that light mocha color, and then just adding some white, which represents the white vanity, the white drawers, and you know, some of the white that's in the office itself. And as this dries, it will have different looks depending on the lighting that's on it. But again, it's a very, very simple painting. Only took me a few minutes to do with a little bit of acrylic paint. There you go. There's the finished product. Let's head back over to the gallery, and I'll talk a little bit more about this painting and some other ideas that I have. I always tend to use too much paint. I've said that several times. You know, when you're tipping the paint upside down and you're applying it to the paper plate or to your palette, or whatever you want to do, you want to try to have a little bit of control on that. It doesn't take a lot of paint to add color. So try to be conservative with paintings, and you know, paints can get real expensive over time. So try to stretch it out. That's something I'm still trying to learn. Just like when I'm cooking, I tend to cook for a bunch of people, and now it's just myself, and I'm taking care of my elderly mother, so it's just the two of us. And you know, I have to learn to scale it down a little bit. So I have to be a little bit more comfortable with using a little bit of paint as opposed to squirting a lot of paint and then finding I'm throwing away some of the paint that I'm not using. Okay, we're back over here at the work table in my so-called gallery. Again, introducing the gallery to you. This is the place where I have a work table where I can spread out on and do my different designs or different ideas before I go to my prep table and actually paint. I hang my paintings behind me, or I hang them throughout my house, or if a friend sees something they like, they'll hang it in their house or their office or wherever they may want to hang it. One of the other things that I forgot to mention, of course, is one of my important tools is paper towel. I use this paper towel a lot, not only to try and wipe the water out of brushes as I'm switching between brushes, but also to kind of keep the area clean, and also to get the paint off my hands, because sometimes my hands do get a little messy depending on what I'm doing. I used several different brushes today. I picked one particular brush, which was about a 2-inch wide brush, with a fine one, and then also one with a little bit more loose hairs or bristles on it, in order to make the strokes on the painting that I wanted to do. So I didn't really have to use a lot of different brushes. So those will kind of go back on my paint shelf, again, with some of the other things that are here. Paper towel, as I said, I got a messy paper towel here, so let me just get rid of this. You can thin the paints out if you want to make a lighter color, or you want to mix the colors together depending on what you're doing. In this particular case, I just wanted to have my basic colors and use them the way that they were in order to get the look that I was looking for to hang in my bathroom to accent the colors that are in there. So I had a lot of water. I did have some thinning material. This is a pouring medium that I can use to thin paints out as well as water, but I chose not to use this today because I like the way that the paints come on. Again, paper plates, you know, I try to be conservative with my paints. Unfortunately, sometimes I go a little bit overboard and I put a little bit too much paint on the paper plates. So I do, one of the things you'll find about abstract painting sometimes is you do go through a lot of paint depending on what kind of medium you're using. Again, I'll get rid of this, so excuse my reach. So I did a painting today which is just blacks and grays. I used a little bit of the light mocha color to kind of give a little bit of contrast. And then I finished it off by just doing some strokes with some white paint. So basically what I got here, and I'll bring this over from my preparation table, is we ended up with something like this. So again, very, very simple strokes of color to the room to hang on the wall in order to have matching colors. I'm not going to basically name this except that it's being hung in my bathroom. Very, very simple painting to do. I finished the edges all the way around with the same color paints that I used, using the gray on one side and the black on the other side. And I'll do like I always do with a lot of my abstracts, is I'm planning to hang this horizontally like this rather than vertically. I may turn it the other way to see if that looks a little bit better, but otherwise I'm going to pretty much leave the painting as a simple painting like this. Again, you can choose any colors that you want to use to match any room. If you find yourself that you're in a situation where you have that blank spot on the wall, you have that I want to look at something there and I want to do something simple, you can do a simple painting like this very, very quickly. You can do some solid colors, some bands of colors if you want to. There's even a way where you can put the paint on the canvas and draw that paint down to the canvas to get different looks. But again, it depends on what your mood is. Very, very simple paintings. Anyone can do it. I hope you enjoyed watching this show. My name is Rick, and this is Art by Rick, and I hope to see you next time, where I'm going to try to attempt to do a little bit of a textured style painting using a very common house construction material. See you next time. I thank you for watching. As always, my name is Rick.
Nutmeg TV has been providing community television for over 30 years. We needed some studio upgrades, and Ion Bank believed in us. As a result of Ion Bank's financial help, we've been able to help others move on in a field that's difficult to get experience in. You're working with partners who understand who you are, and Ion Bank does that. They walk with us every day. It's community banking at its best.
Step into our store and discover a stunning array of dancewear. Introducing Dancingly Yours, your one-stop shop for all things dance and delight for ages 2 to 92. From tiny tutus to energetic tap shoes, our store is a treasure trove of dance essentials. At Dancingly Yours, we offer an extensive collection of dancewear and accessories that cater to all styles and levels. We carry top brands and the latest fashion trends. From ballet to hip-hop, lyrical to jazz, ballroom to liturgical, as well as gymnastics, you'll find the best selection right here at Dancingly Yours. But we're not just a store. We're a community that celebrates the joy of dance. Our expert team is passionate about dance, just like you. So we're here to assist you in finding the perfect fit. And the best part, Dancingly Yours offers competitive pricing in-store and online. Dancingly Yours, easy to get to, and worth the trip from anywhere, right on Route 10 in Plainville.